The third GOP debate just finished. Did you watch it? We did. Was there a winner, or did it matter? Trump, the clear frontrunner, was MIA again, but had his own rally down the road, conveniently just 11 miles away. Was he the winner? We've got a panel that's ready to talk. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and we're broadcasting live from our brand new studio here in New York City. Isn't it great? We're so happy you're joining us. We have a jam-packed program for you all tonight. Let's take a look at what happened in tonight's debate.
I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran in order for us to have a powerful response from America. We have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil. You have to destroy it.
And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians?
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see
that. The fact of the matter is she doesn't answer the question.
No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over.
And the absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their #1 way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy.
TikTok is not only spyware, it is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country. And this is one of the big failings among many of the Trump administration. He talked tough about TikTok. I heard him do it many times. But when it came down to it, he did not ban them when he could have and should have.
Sitting next to me, Robert Cahaley, founder of the Trafalgar Company, the polling company, the Trafalgar Group. Robert, thanks for being our first guest in our brand new studio. We have a cup with some mysterious liquids in it. You'll have to drink to find out what it is.
It's late at night, you never know.
Is it vodka? Water?
Nope, not vodka.
All right, so we just watched the first debate. Who won tonight?
You know, I think it depends on your audience. I mean, if you're focused on the MAGA universe, I believe that Vivek probably did the best there because he wasn't critical of Trump at all. As a matter of fact, called out Christian Wilkin about the Russia collusion stuff and called out the party, and there's a lot of people very frustrated with the party. So I think he spoke to that. Nikki and Chris Christie, both of the two of them did a great job of kind of consolidating this establishment wing. I think Christie was much improved this time from where he's been in the past. But you know, former Ambassador Haley had a lot of excellent points that she made that she articulated a little different. I mean, if there's, I wouldn't say he was a loser because he's just a wonderful guy, but I don't think Tim Scott really caught on again. And I think he's probably the one who had the worst night. Not that he did anything wrong, but he didn't do anything that kind of moved the ball forward.
He didn't have a standout moment.
He did. But it was interesting to see DeSantis stay in the MAGA lane, but take on Trump specifically. As essentially not, he said he wasn't MAGA enough. And so I think that was an interesting angle. And everybody's kind of wondering, when is he going to get to that? When is he going to really go hard? And so I feel like, you know, it's almost like DeSantis strikes back. I mean, he's been kind of the guy who didn't make a lot of waves in the last two. I feel like he brought his A game and did a really good job tonight.
And can he shift the base to vote for him away from Trump?
You know, I don't think that's likely. At this point, that's going to be really hard. This is really kind of more. These debates are like fodder for political junkies, but the audience is continuing to shrink. I think Vivek's point about having Joe Rogan and Musk, I mean, like that would get some attention. But you know, Republicans were suspect of NBC to begin with, and so you'd had to really kind of be tuned in. And elections are won by people who don't live and breathe politics, and the people who do live and breathe politics talk about it as if what sways them sways everybody else, and it doesn't.
It's a fascinating point, and I want to keep on that. And first, we're going to introduce the rest of our panel. We have some other great guests tonight. Roger Simon, author of the new book, American Refugees. He's also the director of the Presidential Roller Coaster 2024. Also, Bart Marcois, who's held positions in 3 administrations, clearly all veterans in politics. We're so happy to have you all with us tonight. We just heard from Robert here. Roger, do you agree with him?
Substantially. I think that this was kind of a non-event that I had to keep pinching myself. On the other hand, occasionally I got awake. You know, I was friendly and a fan of, and I did it in the roller coaster with Vivek Ramaswamy earlier, but I think he tends to go over the top. And I think, ironically, Chris Christie, who I always felt not so hot about, seems slightly more presidential tonight than anybody. But I don't think any of this matters, frankly.
And Bart, energy came up a lot tonight. Who was strongest on that to you?
Yeah, I was disappointed that it didn't come up sooner and more strongly. It is the linchpin to everything. And who came off best on that? I would say probably Ron DeSantis was the one who made the strongest pitch for it. He was the one that said, no, it was Tim Scott that said everything: nuclear, coal, oil, gas, everything. That's what it will take. They should have answered energy as the way to end the endless wars overseas, and they completely missed that opportunity. They did talk about it when we were talking about the economy, but if you want to end wars, whether it's Ukraine or Israel or anywhere else, wars cost lots of money, and the people waging the wars are the energy-producing countries, Russia and Iran, and those are the ones that we can hurt.
I absolutely agree.
Robert, I see you nodding along here. What did Bart say that you agreed with, or do you want to add to?
That is literally, he's exactly right. A Russia that is poor doesn't invade Ukraine. An Iran that's poor doesn't fund terrorism. And an America that is making plenty of revenue and lowering the prices of gas, economy continues to grow. I mean, this Biden green agenda at the expense of everything is truly the linchpin. And I think he's right. They didn't hit that enough. It is so essential. I mean, everything from the auto worker strike to the electric cars, it all comes down to this. And this is a policy that, you know, the hypocrisy of, they don't really, you know, China does all the pollution and America has to, you know, face all the cuts. Yeah. And it's ridiculous.
Roger, I see you nodding along over there. What do you want to add?
Well, yeah, but you know, I totally agree with that statement. What's also funny in it is the one, you know, NBC is known as a very big Democratic station, and with their fiefdom MSNBC, which is even more extreme, but they didn't bring up the environment. I was surprised they wouldn't use that as a way of slugging the Republicans, but they didn't do it.
And in tonight's debate, what topic do you think GOP voters resonated with most? Bart, you.
Well, I think Vivek grabbed everybody's attention right from the start, right out of the gates, when he said, look, you know, he kept doing this. He would go for the big principle. He said, you know, the real thing, why are we even here talking to people from NBC? And what is wrong with the RNC that they're not doing that? And he touched on the fact that Republicans have a hard time framing any debate, any issue to their favor. It's why we lost the elections in Virginia and Ohio and everywhere else lately, because we're not taking on these big issues. We're not saying, why are we even talking about whether we should do this kind of green or that kind of green? We should be saying we should be producing all of energy every way that we can. Why are we talking about abortion as if it should be 12 weeks or 15 weeks or 24? We should be saying the Democrats want to let abortion happen up to the moment of birth. That's wrong, isn't it? That's what we should be doing, and putting them on the back foot on these issues and pointing out we're the ones looking for a reasonable compromise, a reasonable position.
To your point, the Republicans underperforming last night in the vote did come up tonight. Robert, I see you nodding along. What do you want to add on that? You are a pollster. What have you seen in the polls that's adding to this?
Well, when you start dealing with abortion, it has to do with the language. When you talk about abortion restrictions after 15 weeks, that's the message it sells. When you say abortion ban, all they hear is the word abortion ban. They literally don't hear the rest of the sentence. And when the Democrat Party is spending 5 to 1 what the Republicans are, we're not framing things the way they need to be framed. And we're letting them define these issues. We're letting them define what Ohio was about. And to paint Youngkin's position as the extreme one, but as Tim Scott pointed out rightly so, that 75% of the public is there. So it's the language and the nuance. And we even see words like abortion rights creeping into mainstream conservative media, and that's part of the problem.
To your point, we're seeing Democrats also use that language game and calling it reproductive freedom, using the positive association with freedom to drive their point, whereas, as you mentioned, the Republicans are using the word ban, which many people think of as negatively. Roger, I hear you nodding along here. Really quickly, what do you want to add on that?
Well, I was talking off the record before with Bart, who I don't want to brag here, but he complimented an article I wrote, and just previous to this debate, in which I thought the greatest thing that could happen in this debate is that they all decided to resign and back Trump.
Yeah.
Because the weaponization of the judicial system in our country has become so bad that the only way it can be confronted is by a radical action like that. I think that this debate, which had good points, and everybody was reasonably intelligent, it doesn't add up to anything. And given what's going on in the world today, and I think there's only good thing to come out of it is a very nice studio at NTD, which I admired from afar and wish I'd flown in to be there.
Well, on that note, actually, let's look at how candidates are doing. We're going to look at some polls now. We're going to start with 2 early states. Here's Iowa. These are actually the polls from Trafalgar Group, and as you see, Trump is leading right there. DeSantis is in second place, trailing behind him, and then we have Haley, Scott, Ramaswamy, rest below. Actually, Burgum didn't make this debate, but he's in this poll. We have another poll from Iowa. This one still has Trump in the lead, and then DeSantis behind Haley, Scott, Ramaswamy. Similar lineup. Burgum's at the bottom there. And now we also have New Hampshire. Once again, Trump in the lead. This time, Haley is in second place, and then DeSantis in third, followed by Christie and Ramaswamy. We're seeing some switch-ups over there. Now, Trump holds a big lead in these polls, but if we look at a matchup, if elections were to be held today and Biden was up against a nominee other than Trump, who wins? Seems we don't have that poll, but there we go. There's the poll. So if we have this lineup, you have Trump leading Biden, and then we have DeSantis leading Biden and Haley. So in each of the cases, Biden is losing, but that is within the margin of error.
And it's also important to point out that elections are about whether someone is defined and well known. Trump and Biden are completely well defined and well known. Even though they've gotten a lot of attention, DeSantis and Haley aren't. So it is hard to measure how they would really do because, frankly, all of their skeletons, all their bad stuff hasn't been aired. I mean, there's hardly anything left to air about Trump or Biden. Everybody kind of knows the stuff. And so it's not an apples to apples comparison at this point. But I do think that it demonstrates that right now Biden is very, very weak. And that is because this election is a lot about the economy and how people feel. And how people feel, you know, when you're worried about whether, you know, you can buy groceries on your credit card, you know, you're not concerned as much with abortion or transgender rights or anything else. I mean, you're trying to feed your family. And some of these issues are kind of the issues that are sometimes people miss what's really important, and that bread and butter stuff is what matters to people. And they look at Trump as and Biden as that's an A-B comparison. We got 4 years versus 4 years. That's an easy comparison. That is apples to apples.
That's a good point. And on that point about Trump, he actually conveniently held a rally just 11 miles away from tonight's debate. He's saying it's not counter-programming. It's just a coincidence. But actually, on the ground over there, we have our very own Jack Bradley. He's down there.
I'm here in Hialeah, Florida, where Donald Trump is holding a rally. Just at the same time, 11 miles away, the Republican presidential candidates just held their debates. And now, still, the former president is dominating in their field. He's polling at about 50% according to Real Clear Politics polls, and also beating President Joe Biden in 5 key swing states. That's according to New York Times and Siena College's latest poll. Trump spoke to a very enthusiastic crowd today. He said the wars in Israel and Ukraine wouldn't have happened without if he was in office. And he said he would stop the surge of illegal immigration, and he's the only one to prevent World War III. Now let's go to that and see what he said.
For 4 straight years under the Trump administration, I kept America safe. I kept Israel safe. I kept Ukraine safe. And I kept the world safe. But we have never been closer to World War III, and only for one reason. We have incompetent people talking on our behalf. Once Biden took over, the terrorists have flooded into our country, and bad things are happening. When you see from China thousands and thousands of young, strong men coming into our country, what's that all about? If you hate America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you sympathize with jihadists, then we don't want you in our country. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, they indicted me, can you believe? But this is a political indictment. This was a Biden indictment. Even that stupid trial going on in New York.
I asked Trump supporters here on the ground in Hialeah what they think about Trump's presidential candidacy. They said that they don't need to see him debate against the other candidates. He already has enough support. And they also said that his cases won't affect his standing for candidacy. The Republican presidential primary is set for the first half of 2024. Tiff, back to you.
Jack, thank you for that. And it seems like you're enjoying Florida down there. Now let's return to our guest, Robert Cahaly with the Trafalgar Group, here in the studio with us. What did you make of what we just heard about Trump?
I mean, it absolutely doesn't surprise me. I think his point about the fact that we didn't have these conflicts, you know, goes back to what we were talking about earlier about energy and less in regulation and doing the things that made America more competitive and you know, kept Russia and Iran from getting rich. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. And so that when he's talking about returning to those days, that is a message that works. And then this idea of the dual system of justice, he's aligning a point that says, if you don't like this, there's only one way for you to make it stop, is you have to back me. It's like, you know, is the right going to the left to find what box they're in? And if they can decide which candidates the Republicans can have, which ones they can't, then the left is deciding what box the conservatives are in, and it's a pushback saying, no, we get to pick our candidates, you don't.
And on that note, let's actually bring back our other two guests, Roger Simon, author of American Refugees and director of the Presidential Roller Coaster 2024, and of course, Bart Marquez, former presidential campaign policy advisor. What did you make of the point we just heard about Trump from Jack there. Bart, you begin.
Well, he's absolutely right. That the whole point of this is Trump is being persecuted under political prosecutions. And it's obvious to anybody, who's looking, and he's in a similar position as Israel is in the war against Hamas. After they finish with Trump, they will come after us. We all know that. Everybody knows that instinctually. After Hamas finished with Israel, heaven forbid, they would come after us. After Iran finished off Israel, they would come after us. All of these people are the front line. And we don't get to say, well, I will only support people that I agree with 75 or 80% or more. I'll defend them, but not anybody else. You defend the principle. You defend free speech. You defend equal justice. You defend the right to live in a land of your choosing, free from terrorist attack. That's what you defend.
And Bart brought up Israel there. Roger, I know you're waiting to weigh in. Go ahead.
Well, I don't have more than an hour to say about Israel right now, but you know, and that sort of puts this election in perspective, because it's such a dreadful thing that's going on right now, the possible elimination of a state and a people, that you know, the bickering between these candidates, some of which appears to be made up. What I mean by that is those of us who are married and agree with our spouses about practically everything, that's true of me, we'll often find something to bicker about. but in reality, our sides could be flipped the next day, and it would be the same. And that's what this was a debate between people who, to a great degree, substantially agree with each other. Except that I would say on war issues, Vivek was more isolationist than the others. The rest are not. And I stand in between on that, because I think I'm a little more skeptical of the Ukraine situation. But I could be convinced either way. I think the Ukraine situation has a lot to do with understanding exactly how the money is being spent.
I'm hearing a lot of chuckles from our panel on this bickering part, but hold those thoughts. We've still got a lot to get to, and we have a lot more for all of you when we return. You'll be hearing straight from voters in a special segment coming up live on NTD News Analysis.
I'm in the bedroom.
Okay.
Oh, shit. It's not here.
What?
The gun's not here.
What do you mean? Where is it?
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, come on, open the door.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
Hi everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Are diapers destroying your confidence? Men's Liberty can help. Our discreet external device is safe, sanitary, and keeps you dry 24 hours, day and night. Step into the spotlight and do more of what you love with Men's Liberty. It's been ordered over 5 million times by thousands of satisfied fans. Call now to get a free week supply with your first order. There's no obligation, just the opportunity to try the most revolutionary solution to incontinence ever made. Unlike diapers, Men's Liberty is a long-term answer to dealing with incontinence. Make the choice to finally move forward with your life by calling Men's Liberty today. We'll answer all of your questions about how our completely unique device works and how Medicare can cover it. Dealing with expensive, uncomfortable diapers is no way to live. Men's Liberty lets you get back out there with more freedom and confidence to be you. Ready to find out more about our offer to get a free week supply? Then don't wait. Call Men's Liberty today.
Welcome back to NTD News Analysis. I'm Tiffany Meyer, hosting live from our global headquarters in New York City in our brand new studio. We've heard from the experts about tonight's debate, but the vote of the people, that's what really matters. Reporting live out there in Irvine, California is our Bill Williams. And he has a number of Republican voters. Bill, the spotlight's yours. Take it away.
Very good. Thank you very much. An incredible debate. We had a lot of fun here tonight. We are back with you in Irvine, California. Thank you for joining us at home as well. Tonight, what we've done is invite a small group of likely Republican voters to come watch the GOP presidential debate with us here in our Southern California offices. And during our brief discussion, we'll try to find out from our group of voters what they thought about each of the candidates during the debate. And we'll also try to find out if there was a winner in tonight's debate. So with that, let me introduce to you 10 of the brightest political minds on the planet. Thank you all very much for being with us tonight. We have a lot of ground to cover. First question, just a brief show of hands. I already know who I'm voting for and why. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hands up all the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. 3 are still holding out, so we'll start with you, Michael. You had your hand up. Tell us who you're voting for and why.
DeSantis, because he is the strongest candidate to actually win.
Anyone who didn't have their hand up? Undecided? Anybody undecided? Yeah. You are undecided. What's going to take to get you to pick one of these candidates? They're a bright bunch of guys.
Yes, for me, mainly it's just more in, like, getting more into what they're like actually supports. For me, it's more not just about what they're saying, but like the actual like deeds. I know one of them said, it's not just about like, your word voice, it's about action.
Yeah.
I'm more about going in and seeing like, if they're actually, going to actually follow through rather than just saying stuff.
Very good, very good. And as a result of watching this debate, it gave me a more clear idea of who I'm going to vote for. Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Very good. And then as a result of watching this debate, you put a lot of time and effort into that. Have you learned anything new from any of the candidates or a couple of the candidates? Show of hands. You learned something new tonight. What did you learn and from whom?
I feel like the positions, especially on abortion, were a little bit more fleshed out,
yeah.
Especially like Vivek's position. It was kind of novel, so I appreciated basically what he said about it.
Very good. And who else learned something new? You had hands up. You learned something new tonight. What did you learn and from whom?
I thought it was interesting to learn about Nikki Haley calling China our friend.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. We'll move on to this next part. And this is debates kind of like a baseball game. There are winners and there are losers. No crying in baseball, no crying in politics. So let's find out who won this debate. Let's go through each of the candidates in alphabetical order. To begin with, Chris Christie. Long before he was an enemy, he was a friend of Donald Trump. Show of hands. Chris Christie pulled it off. He won the debate tonight. Not a one of you. If Chris Christie wins, you're all going to get an audit. What happened? He didn't win. What could he have done to win?
I just think that he isn't very likable, and I think that he flip-flops on some of his policies. So
you were appointed a consultant to the Christie campaign. What would you advise him to do to win the next debate?
I wouldn't. I'd tell him to drop out.
Not a Chris Christie fan. Very good. You got to admire a guy who puts on boxing gloves and invites Disney into the ring and takes on Donald Trump at the same time. Ron DeSantis, Florida governor. He won the debate. Show of hands. One person. You're for Team Ron. What did he do to make you think he won?
He was consistent and clear about everything he said, so he stayed consistent from all his other debates. A little bit better prepped also.
And this gentleman's going to tell you you're wrong. Ron DeSantis did not win this debate.
No, he's very antisocial. He doesn't have a good smile, and
every time he talks, it's just like it just feels like you don't want to even look at him because he's just you don't know what he's even talking about.
Fair enough. Okay, very good. We were the first nation to put a man on the moon. Should we be the first political party to put a woman in the White House? Nikki Haley won the debate. Not a single one of you. Nobody. What caused Nikki Haley to lose this debate?
For me, mainly it's just like a lot, like she kind of just took everything personal. Like, I don't know, she was like, she can't even control like the TikTok especially. She was called out for having her daughter use it. If she can't control her own household, she can't control the government.
How will she control the government? Very good. You, not a big fan either.
I felt her closing statement really did her harm. She did not put America first in any of her statements, and I think that's something that she needs to do going forward.
Very good. If nothing else, this guy's got $1 million smile. Did Ramaswamy make a win for himself tonight? A show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6.5. You for Ramaswamy? Not for just. But he won the debate. 8 people say Ramaswamy won this debate. What did Vivek Ramaswamy do to win this debate, in your estimation?
He's direct. He's open, he's creative, and he's straightforward.
And who was not Team Ramaswamy? Anybody not for Ramaswamy? No, nobody? Okay, so Ramaswamy had a great night tonight. Finally, we recognize the esteemed Senator Tim Scott, South Carolina. Tim Scott for president. Did he win the debate tonight? You're waffling. What did he do to make you think he performed well?
He was just amazingly nice and cordial with everybody. He looked like a happy warrior. Yeah. And he looks like someone I'd want to have a beer with.
All-American, very good. There was somebody else tonight who was running for president. He wasn't on the debate stage. I forgot his name. Little help, anybody? Donald Trump. That's the guy facing a boatload of some serious charges. He's got a lot of conflict in his orbit. Donald Trump, show of hands, he's applying for a job. He didn't show up for the interview. Should Donald Trump have been on the debate stage? Show of hands. Should he have been there tonight? Yes, he should have been. 1, 2, and you think he should have been. Why should he have been there? He's beating everybody already.
Well, just because he's a very important part of the process, of the voting process, so I think everyone that is should be there.
He's got everybody beat. Is there a need for Donald Trump to be on that debate stage?
I don't think so. As entertaining as it might be, we all know that Trump basically is the face of the GOP right now, so he doesn't really need to.
It's over. Why show up? Stay at home and watch the fun unfold. Is there anybody on that debate stage who can really beat Donald Trump? 5 people, very talented. Can anybody beat Trump? In show of hands? Nobody. He's got this thing all wrapped up. Not one person on that stage, in your estimation, can beat Donald Trump.
I think all of them have the ability to, but the only true candidate that could and is likable enough and has the experience would be DeSantis.
And you don't think anybody could beat Donald Trump?
No, I think if he showed up, he would have just cleaned a few more bodies off the stage for next time.
Yeah, very good. And a show of hands, we want to see Donald Trump participate in at least one primary debate. Anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4 people want to see Donald Trump participate in at least one event. Next segment is called I Didn't Really Get My Money's Worth. You came out, you showed your support, you watched the debate front to back. Were there any important issues that weren't discussed tonight that you wanted the candidates to discuss? Show of hands. You pretty much heard everything you wanted to hear. Is there anything, there must be something that they didn't talk about.
I believe they didn't talk enough about what's currently going on in Palestine after October 7th. There's not enough talking about the current humanitarian conditions in the city of Gaza and in the Gaza Strip. I feel like they just talked about October 7th and not much after that.
But overall, you're satisfied with the overall tone of the debate? The moderators did a good job. You heard everything you wanted to hear from all the candidates? Everybody's pretty satisfied. Very good. Thank you all very much for sharing some time with us tonight. We appreciate it. We could not have this dialogue without your help. My hands are full. I can't applaud you, but please give yourself a round of applause for being here tonight. Thank you all very, very much. Much appreciated. Tiffany, you've just heard from a small group of likely Republican voters who were very generous tonight, sharing their time, their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions on the debate they just watched. Right now, it looks like the front runner in the debate tonight was Ramaswamy. However, the election is still a little less than a year away, so minds could be changed. Now, we're not done with you yet. We'll see you back shortly. We're going to pare down our group of 10 voters down to a group of 3 voters, and we'll delve into some more critical issues and in depth. For now, Bill Thomas reporting live from Irvine, California, and Tiffany, back to you in New York.
Bill, thank you. That was great. And now back to our wonderful guests. We have Robert Cahaley in studio with us, Roger Simon, and Bart McCoy. Now, we just heard from some voters right there. Now, Ramaswamy seems to have won. That's different from the polling. Robert, let's start with you. What did you make of that?
Well, it made sense because one of the things I pointed out was he appealed to the Trump voters in a way where he wasn't critical of Trump at all. And when he confronted Christian Welkin about the Russia collusion stuff, it was like he was running against Trump, but he was almost like, I'm the Trump guy in this crowd. And the fact that DeSantis, although seeking a MAGA audience, drew hard lines between him and Trump is part of why I think it elevated Ramaswamy to those who all said they really thought Trump was going to win anyway.
There was a lot of talk about Trump, and now we talked about energy earlier. Foreign policy came up with obviously Israel and Ukraine. Who in your mind is ready to be commander-in-chief?
I interpret people's opinions that what I think about who is best to do a particular job is probably not as relevant. I do think that what you want in a commander-in-chief, especially on foreign policy, is someone who will be taken seriously and someone who the opponents really don't know how you're going to react. They talked about Ronald Reagan being a cowboy and that Russia was, Soviet Union was a little afraid of what he might do. And you saw the same thing with Trump. And so you have to be somebody who is less perfectly smooth and diplomatic when you're when you're roughhousing with people who play rough. The only thing that matters to them is strength. And so you have to be particularly strong and not mealy-mouthed when it comes to foreign policy. So I'd say those who are best at that would do best at foreign policy.
And Bart out there, do you agree with him?
I do. I think it's important, and I would go a little farther and say DeSantis and Nikki Haley are the only ones that showed a depth of understanding and an ability. I really liked Vivek's focus on principle, but he really showed his youth. He was too personal, too petty, too much of a slasher. Took a lot of cheap shots, low blows at the other people, and he would not be taken seriously on a world stage. I really like Tim Scott. I like him a lot. I love it that he quotes the Bible. As a Christian, it appeals to me and it tells me that he's centered. But I don't see a guy who's ready to take on that world stage. With Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, you have a strength there, and neither one is really my favorite candidate. But in this area, I see a strength there that they could command the respect of world leaders.
Wait, Bart, who is your favorite candidate then?
Oh, I'm a Trump guy. I'm a Trump guy. I mean, it just, you hear those guys talking about should he be in the debate or not. It's like Robert said earlier tonight, the whole purpose of the debate is to develop what we don't know about these other people. It's to expose them to us. We know all about Donald Trump. And I agree with Roger that everything about these debates is a sideshow. I said to you, after the last one, the few days later, I think you and I were the only ones watching it. We got a few more. There were 60,000 on Rumble tonight, so we got a few more watching. I didn't feel so lonely. But Trump has the experience, and what he said in that clip you showed is right. We didn't have wars. We didn't have inflation. We didn't have these huge problems that we have now. He's coarse and vulgar and profane and all of those things that turn people off. But he was a good president. He usually followed good principles. And he's the luckiest man alive because sometimes he did stupid things, but they turned out well. He has a gut.
All right, on that note, you did mention you agreed with Roger. So Roger, I want you to weigh in here. Who do you think is ready for a commander-in-chief, or is it Trump?
Well, it's Trump by far. It's not even close because we're in a situation where you're going to be dealing with Vladimir Putin. You're going to be dealing with those Hamas leaders in Qatar. There's an article in the New York Post today. They're all billionaires like Trump. I mean, they're living in absolute luxury, the most villainous characters in the world. They don't have an ounce of morality in them. So, I mean, we got to have a guy on our side who can deal with people like that. Nikki and, DeSantis are okay, but they're not, it's a different league, I'm afraid.
And on that note, I want to go to you, Bart. Is this a sideshow? Are we looking for Plan B on these debate stages?
Absolutely, it's a sideshow, and it is the Plan B. What we're looking for is who's the guy who can catch everything if, heaven forbid, Trump has a heart attack or something happens to Trump. Barring some unforeseen accident or intentional, hit job of some sort, Trump is going to be the nominee. Should he fail, who could step into the traces? That's all these debates are about.
And on that note, Robert, I want to go to you. So recently we had a New York Times Siena College survey that showed Trump leading Biden in 5 of the 6 swing states. But it also showed that any unnamed Democrat who's not Biden would actually shift that race by 12 points on the margins, turning that 4-point Democratic deficit against Trump into an 8-point lead. That's quite massive. How do you read this poll?
Just like what we was talking about, it's being defined. Whenever you poll, unnamed person has no skeletons. Unnamed person has no negative name ID. So they always do better. As a matter of fact, I believe on the other side, unnamed Republican did even better against Biden. So that's not apples to apples because that person has not gone through, all of this process of seeing their temperament, seeing how they handle controversy, seeing how they handle stress, digging through their closet. And so it really is kind of an irrelevant thing because there's never been an unnamed candidate that runs in the end.
So pollsters like you have a lot of power. Hold that thought. We are going to go to a break now. When we return, we'll have a live, in-depth discussion with a select group of voters on some of the most important issues that came up tonight. We'll be back shortly.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
Hi, everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. We're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Do you feel the bills getting higher and higher every time you check out at the supermarket? Do you feel your monthly discretionary money has decreased, although your income increases yearly? Inflation is eating away at your wealth. Digital wallets and central bank digital currencies are destroying your financial privatization. Only gold and silver are constitutional forms of money. Our privacy was to be protected against unlawful search and seizure. Midas Gold Group will help you take control of your finances and protect your wealth and your privacy. Pulling money out of the corrupt banking and investment system is a way to privatize your finances as the elite push us towards digital wallets and central bank digital currency. Protect your wealth with real money. Deal with the best. Midas Gold Group, a proud America First company. MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back to NTD, our analysis of the third GOP debate. I'm your host, Tiffany Meyer, broadcasting live from our global headquarters in New York City, our brand new studio's debut. Now back to Bill Thomas in Irvine, California. What's the latest, Bill?
We have pared down our group of 10 likely Republican voters down to a group of 3. I want to touch on a couple of very important topics right now that we all feel very strongly about. So just to begin with, and here's something that this is talked about virtually every election cycle. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Is this the most important election of our lifetime? And if it is, why?
Yes, it is, because this is the last election for conservatives to finally make not just a political, but cultural change. According to Project 2025 and several conservative nonprofit groups aligning with Donald Trump, to fully reorganize the government of this country. And within another 4 years, we don't have another 4 years. Boomers and older generations are starting to die off. The younger generations are more liberal, more diverse, people who don't respect this country as much and who will probably be less likely to vote Republican. So this is our last chance as conservatives to finally change this country for the better.
And you'll do all you can to encourage everyone to vote, the younger generation, your parents and grandparents.
Yes, sir.
China, CCP. How much of a threat is China to its own people, and how much of a threat are they to the West and to the whole world, and why? How?
I think China's always been a threat to their own people. They're one of the biggest geopolitical foes we have right now, along with Russia and a few others. But the fact that the financial stability of our country, that it depends on China, that's ridiculous. But that's part of the world we live in. I think it's really scary to not understand the geopolitical foes that we have, and to understand what China's actually doing in their own country.
And we just saw them making cozy, President Xi with President Putin.
With Putin, that's the other scary thing. A lot of people keep forgetting how close they're getting as different policies from Democrats push that policies to them to get closer. Where does that leave us?
And speaking of where does that leave us, there's an awful lot of very casual talk, as we've all heard about World War III. Vladimir Putin is talking about it very casually. President Biden, former President Trump, we're talking about World War III. Are we dangling on the precipice of nuclear war? Will missiles fly through the air on our watch? World War III, important issue?
I don't think it's something that we should have to worry about, but we've come to the point with such weak leadership over the past few years, the way Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, we're a global embarrassment. And so we need a strong leader to prevent World War III. Yeah.
Good point. And we're long past Ronald Reagan sitting down at Reykjavik with Gorbachev. We need global leaders who will sit down for a common good, for the common goal of making humanity better. Are these the two leaders, Biden and Putin, to do that?
I really don't think they are. I think we need someone like Trump in office.
And what about this new global order? A lot of talk about it. If you look and you watch and you listen, you watch China keeping cozy with Russia, you watch Iran, you watch North Korea and a variety of other nations. How long is it going to take for all those nations to come together and say, you're not the big bully, America, we're here to take over?
That's exactly right, just like the new currency that they're trying to do with India and Africa and Russia and China. A lot of people don't realize that in the background there's a lot going on that needs to be said, that needs to be heard, that the regular liberal media doesn't speak about. Yes. But that's concerning for all of us, and we should all know about that.
And for each of you, we need a new commander-in-chief. We will have a new president in just under a year. Who, in your estimation, will make the most effective, collectively, commander-in-chief?
I would say Donald Trump. Because, I mean, we saw how successful America was under him before. Why wouldn't it be the same way again?
And the most effective commander-in-chief will be?
I believe it would be Ron DeSantis with Trump's policies and his policies together.
And your choice for commander-in-chief?
I believe it might be Donald Trump, maybe Vivek Ramaswamy as a vice president, possibly.
Very good. Thank you all very much for spending your time with us tonight, sharing your very cogent responses to very important issues. Very much appreciated. Tiffany, you've just heard some responses to very important questions we've had here tonight. Clearly, this small group, and a lot of people are very concerned about China, very concerned about the CCP, and we all collectively agree that, in fact, with huge consequences, this will be the most consequential election of our lifetimes. That's the story from our Southern California offices. From Irvine, California, Bill Thomas reporting live. And Tiffany, back to you in New York.
Bill, thank you so much for that. And now back to our panel. Now, we just heard one person bring up Ramaswamy as a VP. Bart, who do you see as the best VP?
Oh, I don't think it's going to be any of these. I think it's going to be somebody else that that nobody's talking about right now. Just as you didn't ask me this, but in the same vein, I don't really think Joe Biden is going to be the Democrats' nominee. I think he'll go through the primaries, and between the end of the primaries and actually securing the nomination at the convention, he'll have a health crisis and step down, and the Democrats will put somebody else in, somebody who, as Robert has said, is undefined, and will coast through to a potential victory because everybody is gearing up to fight Joe Biden. I don't think Joe Biden's going to be it.
Roger, you're nodding along to that. What's your thoughts on that?
100% agree. As a matter of fact, the death toll of Joe Biden was that New York Times Siena poll, which showed Trump beating him. In fact, when the New York Times published that, they were telling the Democratic Party move this guy out, and they're going to move him out late because that, for the very reason that there'll be less time to and they cheat on their rules all the time, so there's no question of no problem with that. And so it gives them less time to get into trouble. I think that's what we're looking at. And I also agree with Bart on the vice presidential thing. I was at first attracted to Vivek because he was young and unquestionably super smart, but I don't think he's ready. And I think it will come from someone else that Trump has been thinking about.
What are the qualities needed for a VP? Robert, let's go with you.
Well, when I look at where what he most needs, I think he probably needs an older female who can appeal to people who want stability but want to look at her as someone who could be president. And that's a really short list. And somebody who could win and wouldn't necessarily alienate anybody, but at the same time kind of be a consensus builder. I would say probably the governor in Iowa would have been a great choice until she weighed into the race, and then there was a lot of friction between her and Trump, and so she's no longer kind of an option, I think, for Trump. But he needs someone who's older, probably who doesn't want to be president. Because the best way to get the kind of GOP to consolidate behind somebody is everybody think they get a shot at this in 4 years.
And Bart, what are your thoughts on that? Who's qualified for VP that Robert was just lining out?
I think it will be a female. It might be somebody, it will either be a female or somebody that with an ethnic minority background. I could see him going with a wild card candidate that is a younger female. For a while, I thought he was toying with the idea of Carrie Lake because she has such energy, but she doesn't fit the main criterion, which is what Robert just outlined. You got to make sure that the others unite behind you, that you're not a threat to them.
Roger, what are your thoughts on that?
My top of the head guess is that it might be a black congressman, a black conservative congressman.
Any names pop out to you?
For example?
Like Byron Donald. Possibly.
Yeah, I could see that.
Robert, how about you?
I think the one thing about Trump is his numbers with African American voters and Hispanics are better than any Republican has been in decades. And so that's not where his problem is. And so, and I think we've also seen Republicans kind of reject this strictly based on identity. And they want to look at somebody who could be president. And the idea of, as much, Byron Donalds is amazing, but he hasn't been in Congress that long. You've got to have somebody who has a little bit of longevity, because it really is like when you're, a president who's that age as vice president, people have really got to believe you could be president. And so I think that is going to kind of get that. If he's trying to fill where he's weakest, I think he'll go with an older female. But, it's his decision, and I think only he knows what he's going to do.
And Bart, you had mentioned someone younger. Any names stand out to you? Give us a sense of who that might be.
I hate to admit the name that's popping in my head because all you guys are going to think I'm dumb. I don't think anyone else is thinking about her, but I think somebody that if he is aware of her, and I think he is aware of her, I think he would like, and that's Nicole Malliotakis from New York. She's Greek, she's feisty, she's a firebrand. She comes with a lot of fundraising capability. She would bring along a constituency that largely votes Democrat, but would vote for her. Somebody like that, I think, would appeal to him. And it really doesn't matter because we're going to be voting for him or against him. What voters are looking for is strong coffee. And if you serve up weak tea, you're not going to win. That's why we lost in Virginia. Everybody's trying to be nice. It's why Jeb Bush lost. It's why Mitt Romney lost. Donald Trump is strong, black, hot coffee. And the VP has to be somebody who can fit with that image.
All right, Roger, I see you laughing there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, though, Bart had brought up one specific name. You didn't really respond to that, Roger. What are your thoughts on that?
On the gentlewoman Malliotakis?
Yes.
I don't have a strong feeling. I don't know her work well enough as Bart does. I mean, I know of her, but I think I'm looking for something more interesting, and I would hope it's not someone who was on the stage tonight, because I don't think any of them are the right one.
Some hot takes right there. Well, this is our panel. Robert Cahaly, senior strategist and pollster with the Trafalgar Group, Roger Simon, author of American Refugees, a new book, and Bart McCoy, former presidential campaign policy advisor. Thank you all for being with us tonight. And that wraps up our analysis of the third Republican presidential debate with our great panelists who we just named. And of course, Robert here in studio with us for our studio's grand debut. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for joining us online. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Until next time.